Good morning, practitioners. Can you hear my voice? Can I see the thumbs up? Testing. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for the thumbs up. Good morning, practitioners and consumers. The time is exactly 10 o'clock on the 2nd of July. Another webinar on behalf of Corporate Services. We would like to welcome you in today's webinar. We're hoping that you are warm because we know it's very chilly today. My name is Naledi and I will assist in today's session. We're going to have two topics today coming from ABSA. It's the ABSA home loan application process by property practitioners on behalf of consumers. We've known that, as a third party, you've lodged in applications before with the bank, and they're going to explain that process, especially for new entrants, property practitioners, who are hoping one day to transact on their own as full status as all principals. And even those who are under supervisions as interns and candidates, I think it's important that they understand these processes. We also have another topic, early intervention, managing breach before it becomes an eviction. This topic is going to be presented by Elise from Expelo. And it's interesting because we know with the economy, sometimes tenants do not pay, or tenants will just move out, or they would give you problems, as a practitioner. How do you manage those bridges? And today we are honored, colleagues, to host two of our wonderful, experienced guest speakers. The first speaker today is Ms. Batabile Sibeko. She is the manager in the direct sales at ABSA Home Loans. Batabile has 19 years of banking experience. She is spread amongst different segments such as retail, private bank, and business bank. She has postgraduate in management. Her journey with home loans began in December 2023 and focus is on building a high-performance team. She partners with stakeholders where she works, clients, and helping individuals and families achieve their goals of home ownership and wealth creation in property financial solutions. And she's not alone today, colleagues. She's going with our second guest speaker, Miss Elise Leroux. She is the CEO of Expelo. And some of you who attended our webinars before, I'm sure you are seeing her for the second time. You've had to join her webinars where we are partnering with Expelo just for education and awareness purposes, because I think the work that they're doing is also important and empowering. Elise is dedicated to assisting landlords with defaulting tenants, some of those issues, and aiding agents in expanding their businesses. After obtaining her LLB degree, she began her legal career as a candidate attorney at Nadas Grove Attorneys, where she progressed to associate and specializing in criminal and civil litigation over a decade. Elise founded Expelo to build confidence in the rental market and promote property investment. Under her leadership, Expelo became an industry leader, earning several awards with the Rocky in the year 2020, 17, 18, and 19, and recognition from key industry partners. So we can see, colleagues, that we have people who are experts in their industry. So their insights will guide us through the challenges that you face in your day-to-day work as you are dealing with your clients, your customers, as you are transacting. And they will, give us solutions around evictions, financials, intervention, simplifying access to home loans for consumers. And maybe before we begin, may I say you will be muted throughout the session to avoid background noise. Mute them. And please use the chat box for any questions or comments but we'll address those after the presentations. We will know them, we will see them. Somewhere I will respond, I will still respond while they're presenting on the chat. Even if you raise your hand now, we're going to recognize you after the presentations have completed. So the webinar is going to be recorded. You've seen that we post them on PPRA YouTube TV channel, at least after 48 hours, then you can access it. And if you're experiencing technical difficulties on your side, can I ask that you maybe log out, you log in again, or you refresh your system? The slides, yes, I know we're going to get this question. Slides, we will email them after the webinar. And the hands, we are going to recognize them after both presentations have been concluded. I'm not going to waste any more time, colleagues. Let me allow Batabile to take us through her presentation. Batabile, you have access to camera, mic, and sharing. Welcome.
Good morning, property practitioners, consumers, and Naledi. Thank you so much for the opportunity and thank you so much for the introduction. I appreciate it so much. So I'm very excited to be here today. So I'm going to take you through a little bit of background, a little bit of market analysis, and then do two of our product offerings that we offer at EBSA. And then I'm going to go into the minimum requirements and our home loans process after that. So please bear with me. So a lot of you who have been with us for some time will know that as EBSA, we conduct the Homeowner Sentiment Index every quarter, and we give the results, we send the results out to market. We normally post it on our social media. And I just felt like I want to go through this a little bit today so that we can just know what the market is talking, what the markets and consumers are saying about the property industry currently. So what we're seeing currently in terms of trends in the property market from a consumer point of view is that people are optimistic about buying property. So the sentiment has gone up by 3 points to 73%. And selling property as well. People feel that, you know what, now is a good time for me to start selling my property. There's a huge demand for people who want to buy properties. So therefore, the price is right for me to be able to sell. And that sentiment has gone up to 48%. A lot of also what we've also seen as well in the market is that a lot of people are looking to invest in land and are also relocating inland. So sentiments to buy property and sell property across inland regions has increased by 4%. So a lot of people now are working hybrid jobs, so they don't need to be in Joburg for them to be able to work on a daily basis. So we've seen that migration or semi-migration to Gauteng is up 14%. To 72%, Limpopo up 8%, the Northwest is up 19%, Free State up 19% as well, and Mpumalanga also up 7%. So for those of you who are selling to investors or looking for investment opportunities, inland is the place to be in terms of rental properties. So the sentiments, the main drivers of the positive sentiment, right? So 55% of buyers believe that the properties will always increase in value. 51% still believe that property is a secure asset, and 52% believe that property creates long-term income, and 44% believe that it depends on the location of the property, especially for those who want to get involved in wealth creation through rentals. Obviously, with every index, there will also be a negative sentiment, and I just want to discuss the main drivers of the negative sentiment. So 60% are concerned that the economy is still unstable. So that's looking at the fact that we have a high unemployment rate in South Africa. So that remains a concern for consumers. 43% are concerned that property has become very expensive. So we all know that with increased demand, prices go up. 46% are concerned about the crime levels in the country, saying that, you know what, even if I'm a property investor, I understand that property is a great investment. However, I'm still concerned about the crime levels. So that remains a valid concern. And 43% are concerned about political instability. So we've seen, the rumors of war, Iran. We've seen that even our relationship with the US is a bit tricky at the moment. So those are the things that are maybe saying people are saying, you know what, let me rather keep my cash. Let me not get into buying a long-term asset. And other trends that we've seen in the market currently. So what we've seen is an increase in buyers in property purchase from first-time home buyers. So 53% of the applications that we are getting currently at ABSA on the system are actually from first-time home buyers. So people are looking to say, you know what, I want to actually get involved in property. I want to own my own home. I want to own an asset. And in that 53%, we've seen also an increase from solo female homeowners. So Black females specifically are looking into home ownership. We've seen a lot of single mothers that are also looking to buy properties, I think because they want to create a stable environment for their kids. So that has been where most of the people are looking, and where our sentiment has currently seen that there's an increase. Interprovincial repeat buying trends also say migration. So I spoke about the fact that we all know that the Western Cape people want to move to the Western Cape, but migration is also happening inland. People are moving to quieter provinces like the Northwest, to say just because it's close, it's in close proximity to Joburg, but also you still get the value of a very value for a quality life other than being in Johannesburg all the time. People are still looking for alternative power solutions, because even though our electricity now and load shedding is stabilized, but we've seen that electricity prices continue to soar, and people are looking for an alternative solution for energy in the country. But there's still a strong investor confidence for growth. Investors feel now is the time to expand their property investment portfolios in an environment where the economy is showing signs of recovery. The Homeowner Sentiment Index investor confidence is the highest from 2016. From our survey, 47% investors indicated that there is currently a good demand for rental property. So this is really the time for us to be able to invest. I've already discussed this, guys. I'm not going to discuss it again. So I just want to remind you again of our value propositions, especially for those first-time home buyer. So our first-time home buyer value proposition is up to 108% loan to value, up to 2.5 million or less. The client qualifies for 50% discount on the ABSA panel attorney bond registration costs. We also give you access to financial planning and consultations so that you can be able to do your HOC as well as your life cover. And then the buy-to-let value proposition is something that we launched 2 years back, but it seems to be a game changer, because we see a lot of consumers are taking up this product. So with the ABSA buy-to-let, as you know, you would need to have a property and then want to buy a second property for rental purposes. So the game changer with this product is that we use future rental as per the TPN report, depending on the area that you're in, and as part of the affordability calculator. So if, let's say, that wherever the person is buying the property, the average rental is 4,000, we add that to the affordability calculator in order for them to be able to purchase their property. So these are just some of the initiatives that we are currently running at ABSA. These are kind of some of the things that we are looking at. So I just wanted to discuss, as Naledi has spoken about, but I'm not going to be sharing, but I will share with her that she can be able to distribute to you, is a conversation around our process from a home loans point of view. A lot of people will say, a lot of practitioners will say, but ABSA is slow or it takes time. So quality applications drive a faster process. That's the main thing, right? And we've recently updated our minimum requirements so that to make it easier for property practitioners to put applications through, and also to increase our turnaround, to decrease our turnaround time, and increase the number of approvals that we have in our system currently. So I just want to discuss in terms of applications, right, with the minimum requirements from a documents point of view for an individual. So a copy of the ID, we need the OTP, 3 months bank statements, 6 months if they are on commission. the 6 months if they're on commission, as well as 3 months pay stubs, again 6 months if they're on commission. So previously we needed the OTP to be completed in full. It needed to be signed by both parties. That is no longer the case. As long as the seller's details are on the OTP, we are able to process the application, because I know that sometimes it's difficult to get hold of both parties at the same time. So if you've done the pre-approval, you can just send through the OTP and we'll be able to assist you with that process. Where we also see a challenge with regards to our applications is for legal entities such as businesses. So there, the minimum requirements remain. They can be a little bit challenging at times, but I wanted just to discuss that as well, because it's important for those of us who are submitting applications in legal entities. The biggest drawbacks that we have is the 2 years financial statements, right? Or the account if the financial statements are older than 6 months. So without those documents, it's very difficult for us to be able to assess an application. We also need the registration documents of the company, shareholding certificate, as well as 6 months bank statement for the business. But if the business is Absa Bank, then we do not need a financials. We just need the 6 months bank statement, but we can draw those ourselves. We also need a letter from the accountant that is going to tell us how much the owners of the business are drawing from the business for salary purposes. So that's where we find that most of the time we have drawbacks in our application process, where the documents are not all there at the same time, or they don't have quality documents. In other words, we can't see the ID clearly, or there is an issue with the 3 months bank statement. It cuts off before the salary comes into the account. So if we get quality documents, it's where we are able to push through the application at a quicker stage. So currently our process is, once the application is processed, it goes through.
Sorry, Speaker. Apologies,
Yes.
Speaker. Can I request that maybe you switch off the video, because it's affecting bandwidth? I'm on the charts here. There's some concerns. And also your
Okay.
slides have disappeared. Can you try to share again? Maybe unshare and reshare so others can also see.
So Naledi, I'm not sharing currently. I had already shared my slides. This one, I'm just talking through our minimum requirements and our process, and so that I can enable the speakers to. I did not do specific slides for that.
Oh, that one doesn't have a slide. Was the one you saying
No.
you will share, we share with them after?
Yes, yes.
Okay. All right, let's continue. I think now the video is down, colleagues. Thank you.
Thank you, Naledi. So I lost my place. So the current process that we have in Absa is that once the application is captured, it goes through to our enablement department. So our enablement department, what they will do is they will validate the documents. They will do a fraud check. They will check to see that all the incomes and it can be validated, and then they will also check affordability before it even goes to our credit department. So even then, they will request additional documents. So example, if you've included there that the client is earning rental income and there are no rental agreements and there's no proof of rental on the bank statement, then the application will be pended, and we will then have to wait for those documents to be uploaded before that go through to our credit department. But once everything is validated, it goes through to our credit department. Our credit department, they go through the application, they check that there is affordability, and they will then give you a conditional grant. Once a conditional grant is issued, then we will contact the seller or the agent, and we will then take us through to valuations. We'll come and do a physical valuation on most of the properties. However, if you are selling a property, currently we've amended our process. We are selling a property that was advertised on Property 24, then we do not need to, we are able to do a desktop as long as that property is less than 5 million in value. All you have to do is to be able to send us the link so that we can be able to view the property virtually. And if we are happy with that, then we will do a desktop valuation. Because as you know, with Absa, we do mostly physical valuations. After valuations, then you will get the final grant, and then we will instruct to the attorneys that are were stated on the OTP. So our process for it to remain seamless, it's based on the fact that we need, like I said, a communication between the buyer, between the buyer as well as the agent, and for us to be able to get the documents that we need timeously and the correct documents, and the correct documents at the required time. So I'm going to pause there. I know that there'll be questions later on, but definitely thank you so much for the opportunity. And yeah, thank you so much. That is my presentation currently. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the slides you've shared and the presentation. We appreciate the info. And the questions, they will jot them down. We will ask you after our second speaker. Let's go to Elise, if you can share your presentation and take us through. Thank you so much.
Good morning, and thank you very much for the opportunity, Naledi, and good morning to everyone. So I just wanted to greet you guys, quickly showing my face. I know there's a lot of people struggling with the bandwidth, so I'm going to put off my camera to assist that everybody can see everything clearly. So yes, today we are talking about evictions. I know most property practitioners and investors, you buy your property, you are super excited, and you don't want to think about evictions. So unfortunately, it is part of the property industry. It happens, whether you plan for it or not. So the best thing to do is to actually plan for it and not just try to ignore it. So just to add as well, as an attorney, I also have experience of more than 10 years of arguing evictions in court myself. And as an attorney, I know how lengthy an eviction can be. So the big question is, why try and prevent an eviction? I know a lot of people usually love it going, I mean, especially an agent going, yes, just evict them. But there's so much that is involved in an eviction. So the first thing is, an eviction is very, very expensive, and most owners don't have the money. And if I say expensive, what do I mean by that? Now, Expella has clients nationwide, and we deal with more than 27 panel attorneys. So an eviction can be between 12,000 Rand and 80,000 Rand. And most instances, an attorney doesn't proceed with the matter until they have a deposit. So to be clear, at this juncture, your landlord has to pay for an attorney while they're not receiving the rent, and they must probably have to pay their bond. The bank is not going to go and say, oh, we understand you don't get your rent, so you don't have to pay. Unfortunately, you still remain liable for the bond. So that's the first thing. The other thing is, please keep in mind, and I think this is something I just want to raise, agents often have a very good relationship with their conveyancers, but you do get different type of attorneys. Conveyancers preferably do not do evictions. The conveyancing process, they go to the deeds office, and that's a specialized field. Litigation is where they actually go to court to fight about an eviction. So that's the other thing is, often conveyancers may be offered to do a letter of demand, but they don't do the eviction process. So to use the correct attorney is very, very important. The second thing is, evictions take time. Unfortunately, it's not a sense of, today I cancelled the lease agreement, tomorrow I can go and evict this person from the property. Believe me, if that was possible, I would have tried it. But you have to follow the eviction process. And in South Africa, it is governed by the PI Act, the Prevention of Illegal Evictions, in short, and it's governed by that process. And it's a 3-phase process. That means, on average, it takes about 3 to 4 months to just get your eviction order. And that is if it's unopposed. And this period can be changed and impacted by the time of year, the court that you are using. And that's why if we can prevent it, it is something that is really valuable to your owner. Then I'm sure for all the property practitioners on here, it's no surprise to tell you evictions are emotionally draining. I did divorces. I'm telling you, the emotions during a divorce and the emotions during an eviction is similar. And why is that? Because the landlord is experiencing a feeling of injustice. They trusted someone with their property. It's a big trust. And that tenant abused that trust. So that's why you get people that does irrational things. And I promise you, I'm an investor myself, and I did evictions and I know the process. But when my tenant didn't pay, I wanted to go cut the electricity. You can't do that, by the way. So it's not a suggestion. It's just to show you how emotional it is. And that pressure, of course, comes down onto the property practitioners. The property practitioners are being put more and more under pressure. And the problem is, usually during this period, you are not receiving an income. You are getting your income from the rent collected. If the tenant is not paying the rent and the lease agreement is cancelled, you most probably don't even have a mandate in place anymore. You can't do anything further over and above asking for payment. So you're getting all of this pressure from the landlord, and there's nothing more that you can do. It's at a stage that an attorney needs to deal with it. So that's why eviction should be taken all steps. And the reason why I'm so passionate and I'm so aware of this is because this is the core of Expello. We've realized that is what is so, so needed. But now, how do we know we're there? Because let's face it, we firstly place this tenant, and we're not going to place a tenant if we have a good relationship with that tenant. So if the tenant passed and we are happy with this tenant, everything looks good, we like this person, we place this person, this is not, you don't immediately worry about eviction. So what is the couple of early warning signs? And this is things we pick up because we deal with breaches on a daily basis. Everybody out there has a rough time. Everybody can sometimes forget to make a payment on a certain date. So if somebody misses a payment or make a late payment, the first thing you have to ascertain is this a normal thing? Because you'll see if somebody's starting to pay late this month, they pay on the 2nd, next month they pay on the 3rd, then on the 4th, then on the 5th, and then they don't make payment. So one payment, late payment, okay, it can happen. We don't raise the alarms yet. If it becomes a second late payment, I think it's something that one should investigate. Also, the reason about why they missed the payment. We have to remember that similar to a bond payment, a rental payment is one of the biggest payments a tenant has to make, and usually is about a third to a half of their income. So if they miss this payment this month, the possibility that they're going to pay a double payment next month is very slim. So the conversation should be, majority of people cannot just make a double payment. They have to make 2 or 3 payments, and one has to ascertain the reason. Then, of course, unfortunately in South Africa, very people are reckless with their money. So the question is, could this be prevented, the late payment or the non-payment? We all know everybody loves December. They spend too much money, and they, have nice holiday, buy a lot of presents, and then they can't pay in January. So manage it. How can you prevent it? See how one can arrange it. The other one here that's super valuable is when you speak to your tenant and you ask them, when do you receive your salary? If they only get paid on the last day of the month, please make provision that there's a possibility they won't be able to make the rent payment, or, as most lease agreements stipulate, will reflect on the 1st. Why am I saying this? If the tenant is only getting his salary on the 1st, now this is if it reflects in his account. Many people get paid on the last day and it might only reflect on the 1st. If the money only reflects in his bank on the 1st and then he pays the rent on the 1st, there's a good possibility it's not going to reflect on the same day. Is the arrangement going to be made? Is he going to make immediate payment? Or should one just prevent and manage everybody's expectations and say rent is due on the 2nd of every month because your salary only gets paid on the last day. Ask which banks. Is everybody in the same bank? Is it going to reflect? I see often these problems. Same thing with people getting paid on the 15th of the month. Make sure that they pay in advance. Otherwise, everybody knew they're going to pay late. It was a verbal agreement, but it doesn't manage the landlord's expectations. And for the administrators that's on here today, you know that feeling. It feels like on the 1st, the landlords wait until 8:30 and then they start phoning, where's my rent money? We need to manage expectations. Also, this is one of the conversations one have to have, is if there is a recurring non-payment or late payment, speak to them about, listen, should it not be rather go and see whether you can find a property that's more affordable? The reason why this conversation is so valuable, because that tenant is most probably going to get another property easier if he's not too much in default. Most people go and update TPN, PayProp, WeConnect You, or whatever system they are using. Just to say, remember, a lease agreement is not a credit agreement. So a non-payment on a lease agreement is not going to show on Experian or TransUnion because it's not a credit agreement. But many people do use systems like I mentioned, TPN or WeConnect You. So those are the things to look at, warning signs. If you had a very good tenant, they missed one payment, they make an arrangement immediately, it's fine. Deal with that as a problem and they will pay up. But don't create the impression that it's always okay. Communication. Now, this is twofold. Communication from the tenant side. And what we see here at Expello is, this is the 3 types of tenants that we are seeing, which is a problem. The first one is the avoidance, the ostrich. We've all seen those ones. They are very quickly to phone you if there's a problem with the property, there's a geyser problem or whatever problem. But now you phone them or something around because they haven't paid their rent in silence. They don't take your calls. They don't respond to your WhatsApps. They don't reply to your emails. That is a concern. I almost want to say is it's as important to go to the property, knock on the door and say, hello, are you still staying here? Because you're not answering any of our questions. We thought you vacated. That's usually because there's a problem. Then what we're seeing is overly aggressive. Wow. People, I'm quite sure you drink as much calming tea like I do. Because tenants are very, very abusive. And I'm not even talking about sometimes the landlords as well. But if they're fighting too hard for no reason, please don't get caught up in the fight. I know this is difficult. They attack the property practitioners personally. They attack your brand. You want to defend, but don't get sucked into that turmoil. Rather just say that, listen, the main thing is you are in arrears. What is the solution? How are we going to solve it? Because unfortunately, the legal process is going to follow. So either they can work with you and you can get a solution, or unfortunately, you just have to hand it over. You don't have to indulge it. The other thing is, please remember, while you have a mandate to represent your landlord, you cannot block a tenant. You cannot refuse to speak to a tenant. If you have a mandate to represent that landlord, unfortunately, you have to take the abuse of the tenant. If you no longer can deal with him, have somebody else in your office to take over the matter. Maybe it's also just a personality clash. Most people are geared to deal with the avoidance, and they suck themselves up to deal with the aggressive people. But a very dangerous person is the yes person. You know, that one that you phone and say, oh, you haven't paid your rent. They go, yes, I'll make payment. I'll make payment today. And then you don't get the payment. 3 days later, you phone, you say, hey, you said you're going to make the payment. Yes, it doesn't reflect. Have you made the payment? Yes, I'm on my way to the bank. I had a client saying, this tenant most probably don't have a life, because wherever they phone him, he's on his way to the bank. And these days you don't have to go into the bank. So also determine, when are they just agreeing with you to get rid of you, or when are they actually cooperating? That is also a very big thing to be aware of the yes person. And I think often that we don't realize we are getting played by a yes person. Then, of course, complaints. Early warning signs, if neighbors keeps on complaining, maybe if there's continuously noise or something is happening at the property, lots of cars going in and out, please take that note of the neighbors. I know some neighbors can be very oversensitive, so you need to really balance it out. But you need to make sure that if there's something to investigate, that you do it early on. The other thing is, and I do see this as a big problem, is when tenants start bringing maintenance matters, for example, to your attention, and it's not being attended to. Tenants then stops making rent payments. I know they're not allowed to do it in terms of the lease agreement. I'm just telling you what's happening. And I just want to say, as an attorney, we dealt with things in a certain way. I know as an agent, you deal with things in a certain way. Expello knows how to balance it. And I am going to say that we cannot just ignore the tenant and their requests. By ignoring, it's like making things 100 times worse. They get aggressive, they get frustrated, and you have to be careful that if and when you go to court, that they don't look like the victim. I hope that makes sense. So that's early warning sign saying, here's a problem that's coming. It's not as easy as not just getting the payment. So what can one do? Now, we're not just we are problem solvers, and here's just things that I see in the market from leading agencies that really works. Firstly, your invoices. Invoices has to be sent out timeously. What do I mean by that? Please don't send out your invoices on the last day of the month. I think the sweet spot, and I know most of the agencies we work with, that's more than 800 agencies, is they like sending it around about the 25th. That's more or less when most people get their salaries, they get the invoice, and they know. They know exactly what they have to pay. Please make sure your invoice is clear. Don't try to be very fancy, maybe to put many things in there that's not relevant. I know some landlords, sometimes they overcomplicate it. Please, always your invoice should take a structure which is understandable. If you use Excel on there, make it clear, easy to read. Present your invoice in a way that is similar to a till slip. Okay, you shouldn't have to have a degree to try and dissect it. And your amounts should add up. Consistency. Please don't send this month, you send your invoices, and next month you skip, and then the month after you send an invoice, or this month you send it on the 25th, then you send it on the last day of the month, and then you send it on the 10th. Just consistency, that people anticipate and know when to expect the invoices. Okay, so that's with regards to invoices. Invoices and statements are super important. For Expello, for example, we can't proceed without it. And believe it or not, we often get instances where landlords say, my tenant hasn't paid, and then we ask, how much should be paid? And not even the landlord can tell us with confidence. If you're not sure how much is owed, how must the tenant know how much he must pay? So that's one thing to keep in mind. Reminders are gold. It's an easy, friendly way to speak to people. I like an SMS. I know people don't know SMS, and I know as some of the young people on here is most probably going to ask me, what is an SMS? The reason why this is valuable, because they don't need data. They're going to receive it anyway if you send them a reminder by SMS. WhatsApp, everybody uses WhatsApp. You can see if it's been delivered. I almost want to throw a gold nugget here and say, if you send a WhatsApp, Also in your lease agreement, make sure that you've added the WhatsApp number to your lease agreement. That's very helpful. And then, of course, via email. And you know what? Don't just pick one, use all. Make sure that you communicate it and on everything on that. And the reminders can be, remember it's upcoming. Listen, remember, if you paid, thank you. If you haven't, please remember to pay to ensure you don't get negatively affected. It's positive communication. It doesn't have to be threatening, doesn't have to be dominating, because remember, your tenant is, you still need to hold your relationship with your tenant to be able to solve any future problems. Then telephone. If it's on the 2nd or the 3rd and the money's not showing, you haven't received any response from your communications, pick up the phone and phone. Ask them, how are they doing? Is there something that you have to speak to? What is problem solving? This is something valuable that we've learned from Expelo's side, is take the problem solving approach instead of the debt collecting approach, because that opens conversations. Again, tenants are tenacious. They don't want to speak to you. They feel embarrassed and then they start to fight. If you purely make an inquiry and you can actually speak it to that way. Then, and with the telephone, that's why on your lease agreements, we often see people don't go look at the applications. Phone them at work, phone them on their landline, phone the partner, phone all the numbers that you have, because that's why on the application process, you get all of those details. So don't just get stuck with one number, ask the other numbers, and I promise you, if you phone that next of kin, and you say to them, hi, I'm trying to get hold of so-and-so regarding his rent, and I just can't get hold of them. Can you please ask them to phone us urgently? They are going to phone you because they are going to feel embarrassed. So that's one nugget to also remember. Then the demand. Now, this is, I'm making it lighter. I know legally it should be a mora letter, but we also talk about letter of demands because we're demanding the payment. This is to start the process. We just need the flow to go. Most lease agreements are fixed term. Most lease agreements are regulated by the Consumer Protection Act, and you have to give the tenant 20 business days to remedy the breach. So it is important to start the process, ideally not later than a week after the due date. It doesn't help if your rent was due on the 1st to only send the letter of demand on the 15th. And I also know it doesn't always make business sense to send it on the 2nd or on the 3rd, because sometimes the money still needs to reflect. My personally thought is the sweet spot is on the 5th of the month. Send out your letter of demands then. If a tenant phones, you say, sorry, the system is geared that if the payment isn't reflected, it goes out automatically. It's not because I have a grudge against you. It's because that's the system. It's the process. The lease agreement says if you breach the lease, I have to notify and demand that you remedy it within 20 business days. Okay, so start the process. Luckily, with Expelo clients, I want to say that it's not necessary to send a very intense letter of demand. A simple letter of demand is more than sufficient. Now, I've mentioned a lot about Expelo and so why I think this is all valid and one should consider this. So what Expelo makes all of this easier because our focus is to give you peace of mind. Now, why I almost want to say this is our expertise is we have a 98% success rate of preventing evictions. Again, we know that even we have the best attorneys on our panel and they specialize in evictions. We have no control over the courts. And our biggest wish for our owner and the property practitioner is to get that non-paying tenant out and get a paying tenant in. So that's why we really focus on doing this. And how we do this is when you as the owner or the property practitioner send out that letter of demand, you PDCC us and we then get involved with the process. And we actually, from the letter of demand being sent, up until the cancellation date. We send an additional 4 letters. We phone, we email. If it needs to, we send somebody to deliver a letter on the door. So that is absolutely something that is valuable. But as I said, evictions are super expensive. And if we cannot settle the matter, if Expeller will pay the whole eviction, we pay all the legal fees to get that eviction order for you. And we've got something extra special. We will issue the summons for the outstanding amounts. We do the summons not because we think we are going to get the money. Honestly, most oftentimes, people don't recover that money immediately, because if they don't have the money now, they're most probably not going to have the money very soon, but it does put pressure on them to vacate earlier on. Our owners don't go to court. They don't have to speak to the attorneys. We handle absolutely everything for them. And we make sure that you and the owner gets feedback, which is understandable. And we have an online portal that makes all of this information available. We built it ourselves, and we know how important transparency is. That's the 2 biggest complaints about any attorney, is they're expensive and you can't get feedback or understandable feedback. We take away those 2 obstacles. Our specialist attorneys also, they will give a discounted rate for any other legal work our clients need. That will help so if they do a transfer, if they've got a legal matter, our network of attorneys will be there to help. So that is what we offer. Now, often you say, but where do we fit in? And this is where we fit in, and this is the differences. We are not a managing agent, and we are not a law firm. Yes, me and my business partner, we are attorneys, Armand now. We are attorneys, we've got all of this knowledge, but Expeller is not a law firm, we're a business. So you as the property practitioner will manage the lease. And the difference would be, in the past, if you don't have Expeller, you as an agent can issue a cancellation letter. Now, I almost want to say, because this is part of the prevention of the eviction, please do not issue a cancellation letter until you are sure your landlord are ready to instruct an attorney to proceed with the eviction. The reason being, if a person is illegal in a property for more than 6 months, the PI Act stipulates the municipality will have to give a report. This is going to make the 4-month eviction a year eviction, because the municipality are so badly in arrears, it's going to create chaos. And the reason why that sometimes happens is you and the agent, the landlord puts pressure on you, send out a cancellation letter immediately, you send it out, and then what happens? They don't have the money to pay an attorney or instruct an attorney. And then they just keep on coming back and putting pressure on you. And this is where it falls through the gap. With Expeller, we get involved a week after the letter of demand has been sent, and we will actually manage the whole breach process. That 98%, we'll do everything we can to prevent the eviction. And there will be a flow. So nothing to prevent all of that. Expeller, please, there is our QR code, there's our contact details. If you scan the QR code, it will take you to a platform where you have a little video explaining our services again in full. You complete the details, and somebody from our office will be in touch to get you signed up, to do training for you and your team. Some of the property practitioners on here, we already have a relationship there, and they can really confirm that we do come to the party. We give the support as much as we can, and we believe in building a property practitioners. Thank you very much, Naledi. I think we can go over to questions.
Thank you so much for that presentation. Both presentations were very interesting. We do appreciate, and we are going to share the slides, colleagues, after the webinar. Let me go to the chat. Let's see which questions do we have today. From Zimasa, if a legal entity applies for a loan, this one, Batabile, you're on the line, it's for you. If a legal entity applies for a loan, is SARS statement required for the individual applying on behalf of the entity? Batabile?
Yes. Hi, thank you, Naledi. Yes, that's a great question. Yes, we do need the IT34 just to confirm that whatever was declared to SARS is what is declared on the financials.
Okay, I have another one here for you. I will go to the hands shortly. I'll unmute everyone. I'm still on the chat. Maria says, Batabile. Sorry, what did you say? The what is not needed? I think she needs clarity. Hence the text, I'm reading it the way she typed it. Sorry, what did you say? What is not needed to be signed by all parties? You go so
Okay, so
quickly.
I was speaking to, sorry. I was speaking about the offer to purchase. So the offer to purchase, remember, we have relaxed our minimum requirements so that we can we can give a shorter turnaround time. So the OTP normally needed to be fully completed and signed by both parties, which is the seller and the buyer. So now, as long as the seller's details are on the OTP, there is no need for us to have both signatures on the OTP.
Okay, another one for you while you're on the floor, Batabile. Sivuile says,
No
what is
problem.
the process for attorneys to be on the APSA panel?
Sure. So that one, okay, I will have to send it to you, Naledi, as well to share with the colleagues. So the APSA panel, there is a specific process. I don't deal with that, but I will send out, and I will also send out contact details of the people that you can contact.
Okay, and Namile says, how can I get APSA's quick sell listings?
So our quick sell listings, they've been contracted to agencies currently already. We're in a contract for 5 years. The contract ends next year. So it is only after that that we'll be able to relook at additional or new practitioners. So currently we
Thank you.
don't onboard anyone. Yes.
Okay, thank you for that. Elise, Melville says, what protection is there for the landlord versus the tenant?
So, Naledi, I know often people think the PI Act is just there to protect the tenant, but legislation is there actually to protect all the parties involved. The big difference is to make sure the processes are followed on time and in place. So the Rental Housing Act stipulates the landlord is entitled to their money. They are entitled to access to the property. So the rights are all there. It's just to enforce it and to enforce it correctly and timeously.
Thank you for that. Mel says, Elise, what do you do when your tenant has blocked you? I think communication-wise.
So that's where you have different numbers. And I would actually even, so phone the next of kin, phone the office number, you know his place of employment. And if it needs to be, go to the property, go knock on the door and find out what's going on.
Okay, I think Mel, your follow-up question, it was covered now where you're saying the tenant says that his phone and email has a bank issue. So I think at least that was her follow-up question on what you had just said now from Mel.
Okay.
Let me go to Talita. Are we allowed to tell next of kin that they are in areas or you owe rent?
Well, I do think don't be malicious. I mean, the next of kin numbers on there if you can't get the tenant and hold of the tenant. So you need to, when you speak to the next of kin, you're allowed to say you're phoning with regards to the property they are renting. There's communication issues with regards to the rent payments, and you need to speak to them urgently. So don't go give all the details out there. I mean, protect their privacy as well, but say enough that to ensure that you phone you.
Okay, thank you for that. Elise Hilton says the issue with the letter of demand going off only the 5th is that the 20 working days then falls into the following month. Elise, please send me your pricing and paperwork to this email. Elise, I'll send you his email address, but do you want to address the one of the 5th and the 20 days? I'll forward you the email.
Yeah, Hilton, I think this is also again where you need to balance your type of business.
Nia.
No, wait. Let me mute. Sorry.
Okay, that's good.
Anna, I'm gonna disable you. Please, let's have decorum. I've just disabled her. Sorry about that, Elise.
Not a problem. So yes, that is a predicament. But in most instances, especially if it's a first-time breach, they do remedy in the first week when they get the letter of demand. If it's somebody that's recurring and every month they're doing the breach, then ideally you want to send it on the second that your 20 days falls within. If it's an Expeller client, don't worry about it because we need to put enough pressure to make sure that they make payment on time. So again, a business decision and something that one has to take note of.
Okay, thank you for that, Elisa. I'll send you his Hilton's email address. Please be in touch with him after the webinar. Batabile, Rachel says, Batabile, kindly repeat the buy to let if buyer wants to rent it out.
Okay, so our buy to let value proposition speaks to affordability, right? So if the buyer wants to buy, it's got a property, so you must have it as a property and wants to buy a second property to rent it out for rental purposes or for investment purposes, what we can do for affordability purposes, we use the TPN report to determine what is the rental in the area whereby that property is going to be rented out. And we use whatever that rental amount is as part of the affordability calculator for the buyer.
Okay, thank you so much for that. But Tabila, I have another question. This one comes from Brian. Part of the requirements for loans are a OTP, offer to purchase. Can that be substituted by a sheriff agreement for properties that are purchased from auction? And would that cover the uncertain amount outstanding for levies and municipal?
I cannot speak to the outstanding amount for levies and municipal, but yes, we can use the sheriff's agreement.
Thank you for that. Let me go to the hands. I'll go back to the chat and we continue with the rest of the questions. Sandy, please unmute and ask your question to the ladies. Sandy? Okay, let's go to Christine. Please unmute. I'll come back to Sandy. Maybe she's struggling with connection. Christine? Okay, Nico? It says Nico Israel Properties. I think that's the name of the firm. Please unmute. Number 3, hand number 3. Okay, maybe they can't hear me. I'll try all of them, then go back to the chats. Let's try Ash. Okay, Nico, yes, you've unmuted. Ask your question. You muted again. You unmuted and you muted again. Okay, let's go to Ash.
Hello.
And who is speaking?
Isha. Okay.
Okay, please ask your question. I don't see your hand here.
I did put it, I think I put it down again. It's fine. Can I ask or I can wait, ma'am?
Yes, ask your question.
All right. For ma'am, what are the rights and as an agent, and since we are the middle person between the landlord and the tenants, what are the rights as an agent we can do or not do to get the payments done on time?
So the lady, if I can proceed to answer, the best thing that one can do is to make sure your lease agreement, that you've sent your invoices on time, do the reminders, and if it's not been made, send out a letter of demand. You can communicate with the tenant, but unfortunately you can't go. I know some people would like to cut electricity, lock doors, but you cannot do that. That's illegally. So unfortunately, as an agent, that you are authorized to send the invoices, to follow up, make phone calls, and send out the letter of demand.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. On the chat, they're saying, Elise, kindly share your telephone number and email address. Where can we share it? Put your email address there, then we'll share the details so she can contact you. Number 358 user. Will there be a link to rewatch? Yes, we did say at the beginning of the webinar, we're going to put the recorder on YouTube in 48 hours PPRA TV channel, and we're also going to share the slides. But Tabile, can you please share again the documents required when applying for an ABSA home loan? Can you go through that, which documents they need?
Okay, I can. And like I said, I will also share the document itself. So ID for individuals, ID offer to purchase, 3 months bank statements, 3 months pay stubs for an individual. For joint, the same. And then for what I talked about, entities or companies, we're looking at the documents, the ID, the offer to purchase, individual 3 months bank statement. We need 6 months business statement, 2 years financial statements, and if the financials are older than 6 months, we would need management accounts. And we need a letter from the auditor stating how much was taken in drawings by the directors, as well as, yeah, I think that's also all those IT 34 to confirm that SARS was paid for that calendar year.
Okay, thank you for that, colleagues. Elise, oh, thank you so much. Elise has shared her email address on the chat, the telephone number, and the website. I've also pinned them. Please look at them and be in touch with her. Cecile says, Expello question. You mentioned the PI Act and municipality getting involved. What can the municipality do with a tenant in areas of 3 months?
Naledi, so it's a very good question. So the municipality, in terms of the PI Act, that's when the lease agreement has been cancelled. And the PI Act stipulates the municipality needs to get involved to determine if the tenants are destitute. So the municipality does not come into collecting the money or anything. They usually are instructed to get involved to determine, to go do a report and see if the government has to give alternative accommodation. Remember, the obligation to grant alternative accommodation is not on the owner. So we need to determine, firstly, is this a destitute type of person? And can they, should the municipality give them alternative accommodation? With regards to outstanding monies, if they don't want to go to an attorney, the ideal place would be the housing tribunal.
Okay, thank you. And we had a webinar last week with the rental tribunal. I have another one from Isha. How do we protect the landlord and agent from a bad tenant? As what, I think they're trying to say, what are the rights as an agent that can be done and not to make sure the payment rental is made? Elise?
So I think firstly vetting, to try, and when you do your vetting, do it in detail and see if you can prevent, if you see history of non-payments, you know you're going to struggle with somebody again. So for that type of protection, do vetting, try and prevent placing a tenant which has got a history or clearly shows signs of being a problem tenant. But unfortunately, what we've seen is, even on Expello side, is tenants passes the vetting with flying colors. They credit scores looks great, everything looks great, and it still can happen. So I think just make sure your vetting is done well, make sure your processes are in place, and that you follow that to the T. That's the best way that you can protect yourself and your landlord.
Okay, thank you so much for that. And Dawn is asking, Elise, while you're still on the floor, can you go to a tenant's place of employment?
To do what? To find him? I think to clarify. So, but yes, I mean, if they're not speaking to you and you need to speak to someone, go to their place of employment, because you just want to have that communication.
Okay, I see your comment, Elise. Expello is only $250 per month per residential lease. And then let me go to another one. Will there be, okay, we answered this one. Rentals says, if tenant is a foreigner and you give him the notice to move out and he refuses and accuse you of being, I think they want to say racist rather than racism, racist. How do you, maybe, I think they are trying to say, how do you deal with that? Maybe their question is not complete. We'll try to complete it. Maybe they're trying to say, how do I deal with that if somebody is a tenant and is a foreigner? But I think also, I don't know, if they are a foreigner, why are they being allowed to rent? Is it a foreigner who has documents, proper documents? The question is incomplete. I don't know if you are able to make it out, Elise.
So, Naledi, I actually want to say to everyone, we don't just see this on foreigners, we see it on all types of tenants. We've seen it that the moment you cancel, they start threatening you with being racist. They threatening you, saying you're illegally trying to evict them. This is their way of trying to threaten and see if you will back off. As long as your paperwork is in ready, that's when you hand it over. Then it has to go legal. And if somebody says, I'm going to get a lawyer, that's not a bad thing. Tell them, thank you, good. Let the attorneys speak to each other. But don't get sucked into that word fighting, defending, all of those. As long as you just keep it to, sir, you haven't paid the rent, the demand has been sent in terms of the lease, the next step is cancellation, it's going to go legal. If you make payment, you stop the process. It's as easy as that.
Okay, thank you. Dawn, your question, I'm not sure if it's complete. It says, is there a policy a seller can take out to protect them against any losses? Dawn, can you please raise your hand for this one? And let me go back to the hands and try and see if, Nico, can you unmute yourself and ask a question? Ash, Madeleine, Sivuyile, anyone? Can you hear me? Please unmute.
Yes, Naledi, I hear you.
Sivuyile, please ask.
Thank you, Naledi. Hi, Elise.
Hello.
Elise, I've got a question for you. We have a tenant, and there's clearly an affordability question here. It's quite a big property, and the rental obviously is quite high, and there's been repeated breaches by the tenant in terms of the rental payments. And for some reason, the landlord doesn't want to proceed with eviction. How do we deal with that kind of situation as the agency?
So I think this is also where you have to make a business decision. If the tenant cannot pay the property, you can only follow your processes. And the thing is, you are not getting paid. So if the tenant is not paying the rent, the landlord doesn't want to take the next step, you are not getting paid, I would actually consider saying to the landlord, well, then I cannot do much more, then I have to end my mandate. Alternatively, are you going to pay me every month just to send the invoices where we know this person cannot make payment?
100%. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Batabile Yunus says, does ABSA have an Islamic banking home loan option?
No, currently we do not have ABSA Islamic specific value proposition.
Okay,
banking just not for home loans. Ne?
Okay, your volume is a bit lower. You just check it, Batabile, for our next question. Elise, Kwanele says, is 250 for one lease agreement or can be bundled for multiple leases?
No, it's per lease agreement, per month, because for that 250, if we need to evict, we can evict the people on that's linked to that lease agreement. So unfortunately, landlord cannot take 250 for all of their properties.
Okay, I have another one from Surya. Are agents allowed to threaten tenants with evictions every single month? Is it part of agents' jargon to constantly threaten tenants?
Well, I do not think it's ideal to be in a state that you need to threaten every time, but to follow the process. So there's nothing wrong to say, listen, the demand has gone out. If you don't rectify your breach, the lease will be cancelled and you'll be required to vacate. If you do not vacate, then the owner will proceed with an eviction. That is a fact. That's not even a threat. But I would say that if you need to make this conversation every month, the conversation should actually change to, listen, clearly you are experiencing a problem. Can we not, by agreement, cancel the lease? You vacate, I get a new paying tenant in as soon as possible. I also just want to add here quickly, because I know we've got time, is often owners hold on to that early cancellation penalty so closely that they don't want a tenant to go earlier on, or they want them to stay for the remainder of the lease. It's sometimes better to just cut your losses and let them vacate. you can rather find them a new tenant which is able to pay and will look after the property. So that's one of the things that one should always balance the finances and see what is the best financial decision one can take. But you can never hold a tenant to something if they cannot perform.
Okay, thank you for that. And why do we need a tax number of the landlord? The question is from Matabo. Elise, I don't know. Do you need a tax number?
I think that is maybe for Matabile, for the buy to rent thing. But for from our side, if it's for the rental application part, it really will be because you need to report your rental income to SARS.
Batabile?
Yeah, also for the same reason for rental income reporting, because we do assist with IT for IT 34 purposes. We do assist with helping you to report your rental income to SARS.
Okay, thank you so much. And colleagues, Batabile has shared her email address. You'll see it then at 11:01. She posted her email address if you want to send her an email. Yulin says, may you please share the YouTube link where we can find the recording. It's on the PPRA TV. You search PPRA TV on YouTube and you will find all the recordings, even the one from last week from Rental Tribunal. You will find it there. And then let me go to see if we have another question. Let's see the hands. Ash, are you winning? Madeleine Sivuile did ask. I'm gonna lower your hand. Sherika, please unmute.
Good day to one and all. My question is, I had a very good tenant. She stayed there for 3 years. But in the last 3 months, she did contact us to say she lost a job. And by end of June, she was getting another job and she was paying. So the owner and I, we all were in communication. And then just by the weekend, she just upped and ran away. So I want to know, Expeller, if you can help me trace her. I phoned all her family members. No one seemed to know where she is, but she owes the owner 3 months rental. So I need the procedure of that. How do I, as an agent, assist the owner to get her money back?
That's a very, very good question. Just to say, Expeller gets involved. You sign up with us at the beginning of a lease, or if the tenant has not breached in the past 3 months. So unfortunately, you can't sign up matters with us where there already is a problem. What you can do now is you will refer your owner to an attorney. They can then find a tracer and they can then try and find her, then issue summons and collect the money. As an agent, that's the only thing that you can do, is you can refer them to somebody that can help them collect it. I always say, also, please, you're welcome to contact me. I'll refer you to one of my panel attorneys because I'm very strict with them. But people must always weigh up. Is it going to be worthwhile to pay an attorney, which maybe the summons process, everything can cost easily about 10,000 Rand? And please don't keep me to it. It's an average. It can be 5 or 10,000 Rand. But you're not going to spend that money to try and claim 8,000 Rand. So never throw good money after bad. Make an assessment, see, listen, what is worthwhile? Should we take some steps? And determine how much money they're willing and able to spend to try and recover that money.
Okay, thank you so much.
It's a pleasure.
That's a good advice. That's a good advice. Don't spend more to recoup less. Yuna says, can an agent request tenant to update his financial standing via a credit check yearly? Elise?
Nalini, just quickly repeat the question again.
It says from Yunus, can an agent request tenant to update his financial standing via a credit check yearly?
So, Naledi, I think the approach is more of, you're not going to just ask them to update. You're going to say, listen, we want to renew the lease agreement for a further 12 months. usually as part of the renewal processes, the rent usually goes up. So technically what you're doing is, yes, you want to renew. We need to determine whether you will be able to pay the increased rental. Therefore, please give us the consent that we can just run a credit check again, because to determine whether your financial position is still that you'll be able to afford the new rental. That's why your renewal process with your tenant should actually start 3 months before the lease actually expires, because it gives you enough time to do all the checks and balances. If you explain it to your tenant this way, to say, we want to keep you, the new rent will increase by 10%, argument's sake, we just need to make sure that you can still afford the increased rent. Can we run the credit check? Then that will be more than enough.
Thank you so much. I have another one from Kylie. What is the situation when you take over a verbal lease agreement? The tenant refuses to sign a lease agreement for 12 years. This tenant maintains the property but pays the rent every 6 months in arrears. Can the owner evict this person?
Now, lady, I'm going to be here out of pure experience. I think that type of question, there's a lot of other things that we need to determine before I will be able to answer that. So, Kyle, you are welcome to email me, and we can maybe set up a chat and we can just go and get more details with that to answer those questions. But in short, if you set out the terms and they are in breach of the terms, you are entitled to cancel and proceed with an eviction.
Okay, thank you so much. Let me see if we still have, okay, we don't have a hand now. I assume everyone has asked their question. Let me go to the chat and see who did we leave out. Zimasa says, what do you, okay, it's not starting out nicely. Let's see. Just give me a minute. I think it's what do you do? What do you do if a newspaper publishes a negative article about your agency for not refunding a tenant full deposit due to damages that the tenant is aware of, but still wants full deposit refund? The contract clearly states that repairs for damages caused by the tenant will be deducted from the deposit. This one, reputational damages involved. Elise, on that, do you have comments?
I do think discuss that with an attorney to see how you can discuss it. But I think in future, and I see many agencies do not do this, to prevent it to escalate to that event. When you speak to the tenant and they come back immediately saying, yeah, but you're refusing to clarify it, please tell the tenant, dear sir, it's not me that's refusing. In terms of the lease, this is the quote, the money goes to the landlord. The landlord is entitled to it. If you do not agree with this, please take it to the tribunal rather, and we can go and determine the things there. If you give them that avenue, they go to the tribunal instead of taking it to social media. I think that is one way to prevent dirty laundry going out into social media. Thank you, Naledi.
Okay, thank you so much for that. Let me see on the Q&A chat box. I see all of your email addresses, colleagues. It's more emails and more emails. Let's go to the chat box. On the chat box, we also answered most of the questions. So Batabile, what maybe a question would be, what role do you see property practitioners playing, for example, in closing the gap, especially for those first-time home buyers in townships and the rural areas? You know, do you even get applications in those townships, and because you spoke about first-time home ownerships, where are those numbers coming from, and maybe how you can assist those practitioners working in townships for the first-time home buyers, you know, closing the gaps on those challenges?
That's a great question, Naledi. Thank you for asking it. So just to answer, yes, we do get applications in townships. We do get in rural areas, not many, but we do get in rural areas. And the biggest thing, the biggest contribution that property practitioners can do for us to get more applications and to close the gap from a first time home buyer point of view, is to assist, is to call on us and to help, to assist with education, because where we see the gap, township economy is vibrant, people are making money in the townships. The problem is that there is a gap in terms of education with regards to, number one, managing credit, keeping financial records, especially for your your small business owners, such as the mechanics or people that have, your spaza shop in the corner, or your kota or your restaurant in the townships. That's where we see that there's a gap. And then also just in terms of, managing credit and understanding, affordability and how to manage credit agreements, because a lot of the time you see that people will say, no, but I pay my bills every month. But the problem is that we understand there's a certain date that you need to have paid your bills by, in order for it not to show on the ITC as a delayed payment. So just from an education point of view, I know that all the banks, not just ABSA, they do provide free education for financial literacy. And you can reach out to us at any time to say, you know what, I would like to maybe have an event whereby I have young people coming through, and we can talk about, financial literacy. We will pay for the speaker to come through. It's not an ABSA specific person, so they deal with, general finance, and they will come and they will educate the youth on those, or whoever it is. Even if it's business people, you get them into a room together and you say, okay, I'm getting a lot of applications from business people. However, there's a gap from a financial reporting point of view or from a SARS issue point of view. Can you give us somebody who can be able to assist? And we will send out a credit manager. We'll send out our business bank department to go and speak to those people. So just from an education point of view, that's how they can assist us in terms of bridging that gap, because that's where we see people to have got the desire to buy property. They've got affordability, but the problem is a credit profile.
Okay, no, thank you so much. I think I have another question. I just want to know, like, what are those common mistakes that property practitioners can just avoid when they're putting in an application? And I'll give an example. For example, you'll see a lot of people would say, I bought a property, I'm a first-time home buyer. I didn't have enough information with the Reserve Bank and interest rates going up. I bought a property, it was 10,000, my bond. Now I'm paying 15, close to 20,000, and now the property is going to be repossessed. So for property practitioners, when it comes to those fixed, those interest rates, what can they advise, especially for consumers, to say, here are your options? And I think, like you are saying, for education purposes, what are those common mistakes that property practitioners can avoid going forward, so they still maintain those good relationships with their clients going forward? So a client mustn't come after and say, but I was not informed properly.
So it's a joint accountability, Naledine, from not just the property practitioners, but also from the origination space, right? So ourselves and the bond originators in the market, because we can't leave it all to the agent. So when you as a finance person are sending out that final grant, and you need to have had the discussion to say, this is what we expect this is what is the expectation from a bank's point of view in terms of repaying your property. This is how interest rates work. I know that all of the banks, especially for the first-time home buyers, they do have the compulsory borrower's education, whereby they discuss every aspect of, owning your own home, from maintenance, interest rates. Yvonne, I think please mute. Interest rates, how to manage interest rates, what is your accountability from a rates and taxes point of view. So we do have borrowers education that is available, and most banks will require you to attend that borrowers education before the bond can be registered. So it's a joint accountability, obviously, between the agent and the originator of that property, to make sure that the client understands exactly what they're getting themselves into, and not just rush into and making it a sale. So I think for me, it would have to come from both parties.
Okay, thank you so much. I have another question from the chat, Isha. How can I clearly define and communicate the rights and responsibilities of both tenants and landlords? especially regarding property maintenance and damage, to ensure all parties understand their obligations and avoid future dispute. For Elise?
I think the lease agreement is vital. And I think in the lease agreement, all of these things are usually addressed. All the obligations and the obligations to maintain the properties. I know when people sign up, it's a very quick process, but please draw them to their attention. And I saw one agency, what they are actually doing is they have like a little extra brochure just to give that information to the parties, to make sure that everybody knows what their rights are. And if the query comes up, because we all know people don't read, if the queries are, please refer them specifically to that. We even see often tenants don't receive a signed lease agreement after signing it. Please make sure the parties have the lease agreements and they've got all of the details. So I think communication and just repeating. I know it's frustrating for you as a property practitioner because you deal with it on a daily basis, but remember, even for the landlord and the tenant, this is something new and they don't have that knowledge. Thank you, Naledi.
Thank you so much. Surya, the email for Batabile, it's there, was posted 11:01. Please look at it. And JC says ISLP is a lawyer who's assisting with the debt recovery. For those who are interested in that, please look at his chat there. Kathy says, does a letter of demand give 7 days to pay, and then the cancellation letter gives 20 business days to vacate? At least on that, I think you covered it, but maybe again.
Kathy, so it depends on what type of letter of demand do you prefer. So I know there's some of the systems that present a letter of demand like that, because they do feel it's going to put extra pressure from Expelo's side. For me, it feels sometimes it causes confusion. We get tenants saying, well, I had 7 days not to pay, I haven't paid, so what does it matter? So I think it all depends. See what works. You know your business, you know your area very well. To send a pure cancellation letter, for me, from Expella's side, is more than sufficient. But I think the safer thing is never just send a 7-day letter, because then you're delaying the process with a week. So if you like the both options in one letter of demand, it's fine. Use it as is. If you just use the 20 business days, that is also fine, because it's clear and nobody can be confused.
Okay, thank you for that. And maybe I advise Elise, like, what are those warning signs that, property practitioners should look for, before that lease breach escalations? What are those red flags that they can look for?
Naledi, I think, as I said, in the red flags, even before you place a tenant, is always, please, and we are not a social business, look at the affordability. Bank statements are fundamental. It's not just your credit report. Often people just look at the credit report and go, yes, we are happy, take this person, and then you look at their bank statements and there's no affordability. So as an agent, if you're not sure about vetting training, that is fundamental, because that's going to prevent a lot of breaches in the future. People want to stay in nice properties, but they can't afford it. So that's definitely a red sign. And secondly, if somebody's too overeager and they often offer to pay money up front, but there's not affordability, you are postponing your problem. So rather take it step by step. It's not your duty to house tenants, it's your duty to find the best tenant for the landlord that can afford that property.
Thank you for that, Elise. Peter says, does the property practitioner have to present an IT3B certificate to the landlord for rentals received on behalf of the tenant in case of property admin on behalf of the landlord?
Peter, I'm going to be honest. this is not within my scope. I think that is more business profile. But at the end of the day, it's the landlord's duty to give that to SARS. And if at most whatever you've collected on behalf of the landlord, you give a statement to the landlord. But I'm gonna, Naledi, for that more technical part and on the business flow, unfortunately, I cannot really give guidance there.
Okay, thank you. I have the last question coming from Webmaster. Please hold on. Let me mute this. I'm just trying to see who's the noise in the background. Sorry.
All good.
Okay, it wasn't Tabisengi. Sorry about that, colleagues. I've disabled her. Webmaster says, a question to Elise. Does the 7 days or 20 days letter of demand not depend on the term of the contract, month to month or long term? I think it's a follow-up question to what the other questioner was asking on the 5-day and 20-day.
Right. Naledi, so clearly Webmaster has attended a couple of trainings, and I just want to confirm, I think there's a distinction. So firstly, your 7 days that was referred to in the previous question was for money. So many lease agreements stipulate that if the tenant doesn't make payment within 7 days, the landlord can issue summons. That summons is purely to ask for the rent. Now, technically, and we see this often in commercial matters, where they don't cancel the lease, but they will issue the summons, the tenant will make payments, and because they don't want to cancel it, they purely just issue summons. And you issue summons then every month for the outstanding rent. So that's where the 7 days comes in. The second step is cancellation. Now, cancellation on the previous question was, there were 7 days is just for the money collection, and then 20 days in the letter of demand is, if they don't pay in 20 days, then I'm going to cancel. Now, what Webmaster now is referring to, if a lease agreement is not governed by the CPA, the Consumer Protection Act, and that is, of course, if one of the parties is not a juristic person, or, and the criteria, or if it's on a month-to-month basis, then your lease agreement makes provision. If it's on a month-to-month basis, they only have to give 7 days to remedy the breach, then you can cancel. But now I have to add the following. What we've seen, for example, in Cape Town and certain other tribunals and in courts, that actually require that after you've cancelled the lease after 7 days on a month-to-month lease, that you actually give the tenant a month to vacate. So if it's a month-to-month lease and the tenant isn't paying, we sometimes just take the approach, it's much easier just to give a month's notice. And also you take the fight about the money. These type of questions, I almost want to say, is that's why you need Expello, and that's why you need to discuss before you cancel. As an agent, I almost want to say, please do not cancel a lease agreement without having the backing or knowing the next step is taken, because you don't want to take the risk that it's either not part of the strategy to cancel the lease agreement, or that you cancel and the landlord is not ready to proceed with the eviction. So that is just a distinction. So Webmaster, just to summarize, you are correct. If it's for the cancellation only, 7 days and 20 days does depend whether the Consumer Protection Act is applicable. But even if the Consumer Protection Act is applicable and your lease agreement makes provision that you can issue summons, pure money claim, you can do that after 7 days. Thank you, Naledi.
Thank you so much. That was a very detailed explanation, and I think it will help others as well. JC is not really a question. JC is trying to assist some of the colleagues who had a question with IT3B for SARS. Please look at his comment on the chat. He says, agents only supply complete owner statements. The owner is responsible for his own IT3B for SARS. Thank you, JC, for that assistance. Sanet, let's see. I have a quick question. What do you do if the tenant signs the lease, but the landlord takes 4 to 6 months to sign the lease? The tenant asks for a proof of address or even copy of the lease. He pays his rental each month, but as a landlord, he just does not sign the lease. Okay, I didn't know that it was happening. Elise, do you want to touch on that?
Yeah, Naledi, and you know what is the scary part? Sanet, I see this happen often because landlords is just not coming back to the party. So firstly, to solve the problem and not to alert the tenant that the landlord hasn't signed the lease, just give them a letter from your office to confirm that they are leasing this property. Worst case scenario, what you will go back on is you'll say that there is a verbal lease agreement on the same terms as the written agreement, which has not been signed. The landlord, because technically, if you look at the flow, the landlord mandates you to find a tenant. The landlord already have the lease agreement and consented to the lease and accepted the applicant. So it should be just a formality for them to sign. But to make that agreement binding, you have both parties to sign. So if they don't sign, the fact that they are receiving the rent and taking the money, at most you can say there's a verbal agreement in place. But don't open that door, because we don't want the tenant now to turn around and go, okay, well, I'm not going to pay the rent because there's no verbal agreement, or just to vacate. So as proof of address, please just give them a letter instead of the lease agreement.
Okay, thank you so much. And I think we are done with the questions for today. We managed to answer all the questions that were on the chat and the Q&A space, and we recognized all the hands. And we are going to share the slides. The recorder is going to be on YouTube. As we come to the end of today's insightful session, colleagues, we would like to extend our heartfelt gratitude to our speakers, Ms. Batabile Sibeko and Ms. Elise Leroux, for sharing your time. We appreciate sharing that knowledge and practical solutions, and even some of the examples you gave, I'm sure it brought clarity, for some of the property practitioners in the room today. Thank you for everyone who participated and asking the questions and your comments and just engaging with us. We are going to communicate with you. I'm going to share email addresses of APSA Expelo. When I share the slides, I'll just write them there on the email. And I am going to share the recorders link after it's loaded by our marketing team. So maybe before I close, do you have the last comment, Ms. Leroux?
I want to say firstly, thank you very much for the opportunity. Thank you very much for the opportunity and I think this platform is amazing. And I want to say to everyone, just take a breath. I know the pressure is much, but you need to take a breath when you deal with rentals, because with this high pressure, high emotions, this is why you are the professional and you can handle it. Okay. Thank you very much, Naledi.
Ms. Sibeko, last comments. Thank you, Elise.
No, again, thank you also, Naledi, for the opportunity to engage. I enjoyed the session. So, yeah, we're in this together. We are here for you as property practitioners. Anything that you need, please reach out to us. We all want to win in this game of property. So thank you so much for the engagements, for the questions. I look forward to, getting that feedback from you guys. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Colleagues, can I ask that once we have closed, you exit so the recorder can load and the attendance register can load, so I can get your email, I can start sharing, because I know some people would be in the webinar the whole day. So colleagues, yes, from all of PPRA, thank you and have a great day ahead. Until next time, bye-bye.
Thank you, ma'am. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank